the best entrepreneurs, the 5 to 7% of them that really push through and make it, it looks as though they never have any problems, but yet they have more problems than most people realize because they take way more action and they're willing to iterate off of the outcomes.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. Today, we're talking with a serial entrepreneur. He helps other entrepreneurs grow and scale predictably and profitably with less stress and overwhelm. His clients have generated over $300 million in revenue online since 2011 using his principles. He's also the co-founder of Yokel Local Internet Marketing and the host of the MindShift Podcast. He's going to share his story, exactly who he helps and why he does what he does. I'm Tanya Eberhardt, the founder of BrandFace. We help experts and entrepreneurs differentiate themselves, and we do that through personal branding.
Hey guys, I'm Michael Carr. I'm the COO of BrandFace. I was actually a BrandFace client about 8 years ago, and the principles made my company so successful. I became a partner in the company, and now we're the most comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe. And we do these Be Bolds to help you take the fear out of putting yourself out there. We have some incredible guests. We have a great one with you here today. We'd like to welcome Darrell Evans to Be Bold Branding.
Thank you guys for having me, Mike and Tanya. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, sir.
We are too. It's very intriguing.
$300 million in online sales is nothing to sneeze at.
No.
That's fantastic.
And I want to learn more about the MindShift method. So let's start with this, Darrell. Tell us how you got started in this profession, or let's put it better put, how you ended up here, right? And was there a specific person or event in your life that kind of led you to this place?
Yeah, so thank you for this last place that we'll talk about is this area of digital marketing and helping clients or helping our clients grow their businesses online, right? We've all transitioned, and obviously just a couple of years ago, we know that there was this catastrophic event that we would call a lockdown pandemic. And that, of course, heightened the awareness of brands needing to be present online and understanding the transition from the offline, which still works. You know, people like to get mad at me. Offline still works. Believe me, highest ROI is still referrals. Let's be clear about that. Networking still works. Chambers of commerce still work. I get beat up a lot. But what I'm saying is there's an opportunity for leverage. And right, if we're entrepreneurs and we are stewards of capital of our business, then we should understand how to deploy capital properly to get an ROI on that capital across the landscapes that are available. But my journey to digital marketing actually started in 2003 when I was in the mortgage industry. And I just became fascinated by the idea of email marketing when it first started becoming a thing. And I was just an early adopter. And so I realized that I could take frequently asked questions that my clients would ask me that if you think about a mortgage transaction at that time, pre-internet, if you will, in terms of its adoption, I'd take 50 loan applications a month with people who wanted to buy property or refinance property. And I'd have to answer the same 25 questions every single time I talked to them. And they were valid questions. They were 100% valid questions. But boy, I'm like, the answer's the same every single time. Let me figure out how I can put that on an automated process. And so I signed up with GetResponse, and that process went on to a 53-part drip sequence, which is something that still really works today. So that was that was the early start. And then of course, move on to building a website and generating leads. And we started our first lead generation division using the internet in 2005 or 6. And back then we were competing with Quicken Home Loans, LendingTree.com, companies that, you know, people probably have heard about. And I just became that much more fascinated by the concept of leverage using digital technology. So fast forward to 2009, 2008, we all know what happened there. And I just knew that because I was still getting business because of the early adoption, I'm like, but none of the other business clients that I'm actually helping get mortgages, their businesses are still paying $5,000 a month for a phone book ad and still running radio spots. And they're telling me it's not working. So I'm like, and I wanted a lifestyle change. So marry the lifestyle desire with my business plan, my life plan with this adoption of digital. And it became a great opportunity to start consulting, and I met my business partner, and we started our company late 2010, early 2011. And so we've been on that journey for the last 11 or so years.
That is great.
And you won't get any pushback from us on the offline ways of marketing yourself, right? The networking, anything like that, because what we like to say is, hey, as long as your ideal customer is on the other end of that marketing vehicle, tool, or platform, or whatever that networking event is, whatever that is, if you can get to them and articulate, why they should do business with you, what sets you apart from others in your industry, all the things that a good brand brings to you, right? It's just another way of getting in front of people. It's no better. Absolutely. It's no different. It's different because it's just a different way, but it's no better or worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love networking. I built several businesses on the back of networking and one-on-one relationships. And I'm a big believer in what I call advocacy marketing, which is something we may want to talk about, but I've built that now into simply, let me give you the definition so I don't leave you hanging there. Advocacy marketing in my mind is, it has to do with what I call the 7 layers or 7 tiers of a buyer's journey. And one of those journeys is you meet people in a situation where they may or may not be a potential prospect for your business, but they develop a great relationship with you, but they may not be direct related to a revenue stream in your line of work. Let me give you an example. Someone, for me back in the day as a real estate and a lending professional, I'd meet an accountant. Well, an accountant might have a home and might want to do business with me as a one-off transaction, sure. But the accountant was also, if he or she is working with small business owners or other higher net worth individuals, which is the market I serve, they are actually in front of my client. So I would treat them like a client, even if they didn't buy a mortgage. And that's what I call advocacy marketing or advocacy relationships. So those advocacy relationships could lead to 5, 10, 15 transactions a year if done properly. And we all agree that most business owners I talk to agree that people do business with people they like, know, and trust. Well, that's the same for getting a referral. People refer to people they like, know, and trust. And so that's kind of the idea there.
Oh, that's right in line with us. And there's no real mystery to why you're on the show right here, because we believe 100% in everything that you're saying. Tanya,
and I've listened to and I've listened to your show as well. And so much of what you guys have listened to, I don't know, half dozen shows, and who you have on the show, as well as what you guys stand for in personal branding. If you think about it, one of the things I love to say is, some people ask me what the definition of a personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Is the simplest way I can describe it. So when you guys talk about this idea that it's not a logo, and it's not, it's not some fancy slogan, and it's not, right? So we're definitely in alignment here.
For
sure.
It takes a lot of those things to convey your uniqueness in the world, and kind of what you stand for and what sets you apart. And a lot of people say your brand is your reputation, right? Which is just another way of saying what people say about you when you're not in the room. and it's the culmination of that. But I think what a lot of people forget is the ease of, the simple part of like, okay, but you've got to build it first, right? You don't just walk into a room and all of a sudden you have a brand. Everybody has a brand, but what if it's not what you want people to see you
want
as,
them dictating
right?
that.
You don't.
That's true.
You want to train them.
You want to teach people how to treat you in life, right? True. And your brand is a perfect way to do that. Perfect way to do it. Tell us a little bit about the MindShift method.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate you asking. The MindShift method is really just a philosophy, if you will, a practice of how to get yourself unstuck. Life, unfortunately, knocks us in places that we wonder how did I end up here? But at the same time, I like to say that when we talk about the mind shift concept, it's really two paradigms, right? How do we take an idea from inspiration to realization, right? How do we go from, I want to do X, and then you actually realize why? But there's a journey, there's a gap, there's a chasm there. And there are a lot of things that need to happen, right? A lot of things have to go right. There's going to be some things that go wrong. And that's why we talk about the other side. And that is when life knocks us down, right? How do we go from breakdown to breakthrough? And so often in life, and in my life, which is where the concepts were birthed, it really had to do with me reflecting back on my journey on how did I go from starting a business to having it be successful, going from not understanding marketing and sales to understanding marketing and sales. How did I go from being a fry cook at Taco Bell at age 16 to being a general manager at 20? And I had never set that as a goal. How did all of that happen? And so just sitting back thinking about what were the core principles or disciplines or practices that helped me. And I found out that the same 4 steps help you on either side of the equation. And so I like to say it's that thing that helps you go from stuck to, a level of success or goal that you're chasing. So step 1 is very simple, right? And I think once we get past step 1, it's easy. Step 1 is making peace with the facts. Making peace with the facts means let's accept what our current state is. And that state may be painful. And it happened for me where I found most of the time that I applied this was when it was in a painful situation where something in my life happened. I had a breakdown. I probably caused it. I was there somehow, which was one of the biggest leadership lessons over the last decade, 2 decades for me, I guess, maybe even 25 years. And that is anytime something went wrong in my life, rather than looking outside externally, accept the fact that I was there. I was there. Something in my energy led me to a place that put me in relationship with that person who let me down, or put me in a situation where I made a bad decision, or I led myself in a place. So the first thing is making peace with the facts. Once we do that, it's harder said than done. Let me just be clear, but for the sake of our time. Step 2 then is once we make peace with the facts, don't get caught up in woe is me, right? Or how am I going to go from I don't have any cash and I'm living on my grandmother's couch to how do I grow this business? No, just make a decision of where we're going to go from here, meaning what new distinctions are we going to make? What new decisions? And I like to say a decision is something somewhat of an idea where you burn the boats. So a committed decision means we're not going back the other way. And so making a decision is kind of that second step, which also takes a level of what I call emotional maturity, mental maturity, and conviction. And there are some practices to develop that if someone is not practiced in that. The third step is make a plan. Like, really, what's the plan? Like so many people, and I know you guys work with business owners, we're out here winging it. Like, we're out here, you can't wing your way to success. It's just not going to happen. And the interesting part about that is, sometimes you need to look externally for that someone. I just don't believe. I think there's a few people in the world who create things that are that have never been created before, but I don't think that's the vast majority of us. We should look to someone who's done it before, who's been in that situation, who's been through the process, who can give us some guidance, a coach, a mentor, a guide, a mastermind, even down to, even though I say this very carefully, YouTube channels and Facebook groups. I say you got to be careful because unfortunately, a lot of places are good, but incomplete as far as the information that you need. You got to be careful.
Great way of putting it.
Not vetted. For sure.
Good, but incomplete. So I'm a big believer in paying, because when you pay attention, right? Yes. Versus bookmarking a YouTube video that gave you 18 minutes of good content, but there's something on the back end that most people don't know. So step 3 is, what does that plan look like? And then step 4 is the act of discipline and accountability. And it's called make it happen, right? Make it happen. And again, you still may need some external guidance, some external accountability, because I just believe that anyone who does anything in life, it doesn't have to be business. It doesn't have to be money. It can be relationship. They're held to an accountability standard. And even the best of us who can hold ourselves to some standards, we let ourselves down. So a lot of times you really want someone in your corner. People say, Darrell, you coach people, you train people, you've done all this stuff. Do you still have coaches? And I'm like, I've got 3 of them. I've got a mastermind and 2 external, and I pay them. And they, well, why do you pay them? Like, why do you still have coaches? Like, because I am not that smart. It's just, it's just the truth. Like when I get stuck, I have no problem raising my hand saying, I ain't got a clue where I'm going to go from here. And I reach for a resource. And then when they give me a process or a plan, I just take action, and then I observe the result, and I can navigate left or right. So that's the 4 steps. And obviously you can imagine there's a little bit more to each of those, but those are the layers. And step 1 and 2 are the hardest.
I can definitely see that. And again, in complete alignment. I had a mentor in the 90s who told me, he said, Michael, everybody pays to go to school. You're either going to pay for the mistakes you're going to make being bullheaded and thinking you know it, or you're going to pay somebody else that's already either paid somebody else or made those same mistakes, right? Either way, you're going to pay, right? And we are definitely fans of buying the help that you need and paying. A friend of ours, Brett Schwartz, says, don't be the how, find the who. right? You ain't got to figure it all out by yourself. Find a person that you know that handles it. And, it comes with a caveat, because I also say to people all the time, look, if you want your tooth fixed, don't go to your brick mason. Don't ask his advice. He probably don't know, Like, go to the dentist. He knows, right? Don't ask your dentist how to build a house. He probably don't know, So,
that's right.
do you think, I want to ask you, do you think entrepreneurs fall into those, like, what do you think would be the biggest mistake you see entrepreneurs making? And do you think it falls inside one of those 4 mindsets not being handled correctly?
MindShift is both personal and business. I've been on both sides of it, and I apply it to every aspect of my life. I mean, even going back to just right when the lockdown happened, I mean, my agency, which is one of my businesses, lost 57% of its revenue inside of 14 days, right? So we're a retainer-based business model. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So MindShift applied in that very moment. Like, make peace with the facts. What are the facts? Well, the facts are we can no longer go to the office. And the facts are there's a new definition between essential and non-essential, right? That's all we can control, right? Take your vitamin C, get yourself healthy, do whatever you got to do. Whatever that is, do that. But as far as this business, I own a business, and that means I've got people that need a check every 2 weeks. I've got to now figure out where the clients are going to come from who rightfully had to pause. They didn't do anything wrong. We didn't do anything wrong, but they were told they can't practice their business. If they do LASIK eye surgery, they can't do LASIK surgery. If they're dentists, they can't do dentistry. So they were in the trade business or something related to the construction. I mean, they couldn't do the thing. So we just said, okay, make peace with the facts. The facts are what they are. Make a decision. Okay, the decision is who can do business and what do I control, right? As leaders, all we can control are the controllables that are right in front of us. So, okay, we've got a new decision, essential, non-essential. So let's figure out who the essential businesses are that we don't do business with today, who could need what we do. And so we did. We immediately launched a massive Facebook ad campaign, which was obviously the least expensive platform to go after those folks. And we brought 450 new people into our world over the next 60 days that we ordinarily, weren't serving. Right. And then step 3, of course, is obviously the plan and then the action behind that. But I think entrepreneurs, to your question, I like to say it 2 different ways. 5 to 7% of entrepreneurs don't get stuck for very long. They get stuck every day. But the best entrepreneurs, the 5 to 7% of them that really push through and make it, it looks as though they never have any problems, but yet they have more problems than most people realize because they take way more action and they're willing to iterate off of the outcomes. See, I'm a believer that the word failure is a static event, meaning failure means you quit. But the real entrepreneurs understand that we're going to have wins and losses every single day. And the more of them we can have, the better data we have so we can move forward. So I'm going to answer your question to the 93 or 4 or 5% who struggle, who stay trapped and maybe eventually washed out of the business. As you probably know the statistics, 90% of most businesses out after 5 years. Of the 10% that made it, 50% of those or 90% of them are gone at 10 years. And I think it's 90 something percent of the ones that make it to 10 don't even make $1 million a year. So if you look at all those layers, why is that? Like, those are the 3 favorite words I love to solve around is why is that? And I think to your question, it's that they look at, I'm just going to call it what it is. It's this idea of judging their journey with where they are today by someone else's journey 20 years down the road.
Yep.
I mean, so gosh, true. It's right. They're in the comparison syndrome, right? They look at someone else's success on Facebook, Instagram, or their web presence or their Google presence or their email list or whatever they're bragging about. The problem is today, as much as I love social, people just brag about all the good stuff. They don't ever tell you when things are in the jam, right?
That's so true.
Nobody turns the camera on when things is jacked up.
Yeah, right.
That same video you liked about the person dancing on TikTok, they got some jam, right? They got some problems right now, but they did the content because that's part of their marketing. So I tell people all the time, it's just being okay with where you're at today and really just shutting the blinders off and going back to what is your plan? Like, what are you executing on? Yeah, I'll tell you an idea that really has served me over the last, 20 something plus years. And it's so interestingly simple that one of your guests just talked about it. It's this idea of focus. And that is, when you decide what you're going to do, don't look left, don't look right. And it seems it's so hard to do because of all the stuff. What I mean by that, when you start a business, you should sell to one type of customer, not five. You should sell one product or service, not three. You should sell on one channel, not four. You should only deliver the product or service in one way until you discipline yourself to do that with excellence. Then and only then can you start crossing over different buyer personas or different client avatars or selling the other service. I just see so much distraction. So for example, when I first started in real estate, I only sold to first-time home buyers. Let me go back to 92. For listings, I only called on for sale by owners. I never called on expired listings or any of that. When I got to the financial services world right after college, I only sold to lawyers. When I got to the mortgage industry, I chose not to work with realtors. I chose to build my business consumer direct, and I chose only to help people get out of high interest rate subprime loans and get into a prime loans, which means I worked with people who had some tarnished credit, and I worked with them to improve their credit and got them out of those 2.5 point, 3 point premiums and into good financing. I did each of these categories for 2 to 3 years before I ever ventured off. Yokel Local, you can hear it in the name. Yokel Local. That means we only worked with local businesses until we figured out how we could solve a system or how we could build a system. And that's one of the big problems is if we narrow our focus and only do the certain things, you'll find success faster. But the problem with the human psyche is we're going to miss something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We deal with that
all the
every
time.
day. Yeah.
Yes.
We developed a certain, something we call a HEAP criteria to help people choose their ideal customer because it's such a problem. It is such a problem.
Yeah. Especially in the real estate industry, which I'm in. They, we're like, oh, I'll sell a house to anybody. I'll sell a piece of property to anybody. Well, look, you need to focus on what you're doing, because I can tell you stories, of deals taking 2 years to get done and things like that. There's a lot more that you can get as complicated as you want to with it.
And when you talk about branding, I'll say one thing. I remember doing a construction to perm deal. I'm in mortgage financing. I was dual licensed, and the state didn't have a problem with it up until late after the crash. But I remember doing a construction to permanent financing deal, someone building a brand new house at construction level and then rolling it into permanent financing after the thing was built. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I should have, and that was one of those things, which is, I needed the deal. My pipeline was low. And there was one of the times that I remember venturing out of my comfort zone and just getting in over my head. And it was just one of those things that I can't say I've never, ever done it again. It's happened here or there because you want to serve people. But the reality is you're putting more stress on your brain. You're putting more stress on your team.
So true.
So it's like, there may be a time for you to handle that transaction, but maybe not today.
I'm glad you spoke to that. It's I've learned and I've trained my staff, and I really believe it has a whole lot to do with why our firm continues to grow year over year over year. They will bring me deals and I'll be like, are you really ready to manage that? Like, are you like you do realize what is going to come with that? And it's so many times they start marking it down, building an outline, and they're like, no, we shouldn't do this. And I'm like, that was going to be where I was going. But I let them figure it out, of course, because, everybody's got the great idea. But when you start factoring in those tiny steps that you got to do, those tiny little wars you've got to win, those tiny things that are going to cause you problems and be the headwinds that you have to fight against or whatnot, then it really, a lot of ideas go out the window. Yeah. And in real estate too, and the people, it's already paved. It's almost so simple you can't get people to understand it. If you just do work with the first-time home buyers, you're going to make more money than you could.
Oh my gosh,
spending because if you're the master at it, it's everybody's going to tell everybody. You're going to have more deals. You're going to learn how to run a system, like you said. You're going to lower the amount of time you're spending on it, maximize the amount of money you're making on it, and you can do that with every genre of the present.
Every single one. It's funny. I often say that the greatest success you'll have in business, the analogy I like to use is when I think about the difference between CrossFit and running on a treadmill, right? The treadmill seems extremely boring. You don't burn nearly as many calories, but that procedure is very predictable. It doesn't matter what speed you run at. It could be a walk, but if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, that belt is going to keep moving. There's no variation. But you show up at a CrossFit gym, the workout's different every single day. It requires new muscles, it requires new energy, it requires new focus, it requires a whole regimen outside. And I'm not saying either are bad, but to your point, if you start jumping outside of your lane for the sake of jumping outside of your lane, you won't find scalability. And that scalability is time, money, resources, talent, predictability, and great businesses are very predictable. I'm gonna tell you a funny story, and I know people don't love Amazon all the way across the world, but I bought something from Amazon and I made a mistake. This is just 2 weeks ago. I clicked the order button and forgot to change the address because I wanted it to ship to my son. I got a hold of their chat within 2 minutes. It had already gone to the shipping department. He could not change the address. And as frustrated as I was, I'm like, wait a minute, I just placed, there's no way it's on the plane. But the way that they've refined their process, and I pay for Prime, so it means I'm actually appreciative that I get the product when I want it fast, but I didn't appreciate it in that moment because in that haste of what I love, I wanted to make a change and I couldn't do it. They had to send it to me, and then I had to send it to my son. That process is what makes them successful, like it or don't like it.
So true.
And so I had to get off.
Like it. They're that fast.
So
they've got everything is systematized, everything is regimented. And when you run a great business, it is very much the same way. The last person, imagine you go to McDonald's. Imagine you go to McDonald's and they ask you to come back and make the dang food.
Right.
Right. I mean, look, I make jokes about this all the time. Like you go to the bank, you got to go to the ATM. You go to the grocery store, they want you to bag your own stuff. I go to Costco, it's like everybody wants you to do your own stuff. But there are certain businesses, they run the way they run for a reason because they're predictable processes which allow for scale. So I know your audience is sophisticated, but it never ceases to amaze me that the shiny object syndrome is real. And I'm always pulling people back to let's simplify this. And, it really makes your life a lot better.
Makes a big difference. And that's a great segue. We're going to ask you, Darrell. We ask people on our show 5 very important questions. Okay. The most important questions about your personal brand. All right. And we know you're going to kill it here because I can already know your mind, which is awesome. Right. All right. Number 1, what sets you apart from others in your industry?
The way I think. And that's hard to display in a logo. It's hard to display. It just, and by the way, I'm humble. I wish I didn't make that up. That's my advisor who has worked with me now for 8 years. He's external to me and he doesn't even care for digital marketing, doesn't care about any of it. He doesn't have a Facebook account. He could care less. He said, Darrell, people just pay you to think. The execution of digital marketing can happen, but if people don't know what to do and how to do it and how to evolve the results or how to, iterate on the results, and he goes at your core, people pay you to think. And the rest of it is just execution. So I know that's not maybe the best brand statement, but that's what
that is dead on.
Good. That's good. Okay. Number 2, exactly who do you serve? Who are your ideal customers?
100% professional service providers. I have a niche with people that have a service. It doesn't mean if they have a product we can't help. Doesn't mean if they're in SaaS we can't help or e-commerce. But we've done extremely well because we understand the buyer's journey of professional service providers, whether that's a local business or a business that may even have a nationwide reach. When people tend to have a problem that they need to solve with a professional service provider, a doctor, a lawyer, a CPA, you can think that. You can think my air conditioning broke at my house, the plumbing messed up and I need a plumber or an HVAC person. You can think that kind of service. If you think tanning salon, fitness or gym, because they provide a service called a gymnasium, those kind of businesses, we just really understand the 6 steps that people go through from the time they are aware that they have the problem to the steps that they do, exactly the steps they do when they're considering a solution to the problem, and exactly what they're going to do when they're ready to buy the problem. And we can layer people up in all 3 of those stages so that we can build pipelines for our clients that are they just get to go back and do what they do best, because that's what we understand about our client. Our client doesn't care about any of the stuff that we do. They don't want to talk about analytics and conversion rate optimization and landing pages and pop-ups. They don't want to talk about none of that. They went to school to become a doctor or whatever the case is. They just want to do more of that.
Right.
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 So
this is my lane.
That's their lane. They
Yes.
hire us to do our lane and they go back to do their thing. We got lawyers. Lawyers are one of our niches, and attorneys. And we can't even sometimes get them to show up to their monthly check-in meetings.
Right.
Because they get paid by the every 6-minute increment, right? So every
Sure.
6 minutes they spend with us, they're losing money. So they're like, hey, we see the numbers, we see the leads coming in. Until we have a problem with that, don't ask us for no meetings.
Right.
You're right. No need for a meeting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep doing
So-
it.
That's okay though.
Well, and that might even answer number 3. Like, okay, how do you serve that ideal customer?
Yeah. So I mean, I think there is a process for us. Number one, it depends on, there's two lanes that they'll come in at. Either they've been attempting to do digital across the Google landscape or the social media landscape or the paid ads landscape on either of those platforms, or they haven't. So let's start with the ones who have, and which is the vast majority of our clients. The vast majority of our clients have attempted and for whatever reason failed or haven't gotten the results they'd expected. And we usually find out that it's usually for one of 3 or 4 reasons. Number one, they really didn't have a clear strategy. They had a check and they wrote a check or swiped a credit card for somebody to do it because they are good at this. They're like, hey, somebody else take care of that. Or number 2, they figured out that the person they hired didn't have the right skill. So strategy or skill. And then if they've hired internally, they find that the person they've hired may have the strategy and the skill, just doesn't have the time. And so we come in as an outsourced agency. And then the last one is ROI. If they have done what they think are all the right things, but the dollars and cents aren't making sense, like put $1 in, you should be getting 2 to 4 back, and they're getting 50 cents back or 10 cents back or nothing back. That's usually the big problem. There we almost always are starting with an optimization structure, with meaning we're going to take what their existing assets are doing and optimize that before we go add new traffic to that. If someone's brand new, then we're usually starting at the buyer's journey level, where we're evaluating who their ideal customer is, breaking down the messaging that's required, building the proper engine, which is the website, the landing pages, the offers, the sequencing. And then we're going to almost always go to paid advertising first, because they want an ROI. They don't want to wait 6 months, 12 months for Google SEO to work, which is what it takes today. So we're almost always going down a paid advertising channel, which is a combination of Google, maybe Bing, and social advertising for those businesses.
Awesome. Okay. So number 4, what qualifies you to serve them?
What qualifies me? So I guess at this point, I get to say something a lot of people can't, and that's just our history of results. The recipe we use is not new for every client. It's the same recipe. It's like making a delicious chocolate cake, right? If you happen to like a delicious chocolate cake and you happen to be a world-class chef, it doesn't matter if you like eggs or not. You better put eggs in the recipe. There are certain
Right.
things that right. Otherwise, the eggs got to go somewhere. Now, I don't know if it's vegan or vegetarian. For those who are, I know one of them are going to fuss with me that there's a way to do it without the eggs. But my general point is, we don't reinvent the wheel. Like, the process is 6 steps. It's followed every time. The channel is agnostic. We'll find the customer on the right channel. And our history of results it just lets people know that we didn't just get certified by some Udemy course last week, which, no disrespect to Udemy. I appreciate all these platforms that are educating people, but a lot of people can talk the lingo and can't back it up with the results. And so if anybody comes to my world or comes into my team's world, we can open up results all the way back to 2011, show you exactly how we've done it, and it ain't changed.
That's awesome.
Love it.
That's 11 years
That's
worth
a great
and counting.
answer.
Love it. And then my favorite question here is, how does it make your client's life better?
I think we already touched on that a little bit earlier, right? So they're able to do what they want to do. I think about a lot of our really, they're great technical clients, meaning they're great doctors, lawyers, CPAs, they're great air conditioning. This is what they want to do, and they just want to do more of it. And they're entrepreneurs. So that means they want to have a profitable, predictable, scalable business.
Mm-hmm.
They want to give people great jobs. They don't want to have this idea where I've added 2 or 3 people and now I've got to let them off because business slowed down. If you look at an HVAC company, and it's not because we specialize in them, we've just helped a number of them. But
that's perfect, actually, because I used to own one.
Yeah. Depending on where you live in the country, a HVAC company goes pretty dry in the wintertime unless they have a heating division, right? So if you're in the Midwest, maybe you've got a boiler division, something of that nature. So they go dry. So they have to store up cash during the season. So we have to really drive revenue between March in Vegas, particularly March to March to October is about the window, and then they've got to hibernate for the rest of the winter. So how do you build up enough cash flow and enough cash reserves? So we have a very specific type of thing we have to do there. And so they really it gives them the certainty, if you can use that word. Nothing's ever really certain in the world of entrepreneurship, but there's this idea you said at the beginning. It's predictable and it's profitable, and it allows them to do what they want to do, which is, to your point of your show, build their brand, acquire more customers. We have a company that's in the solar space. The CEO is under 30. She is amazing. And she doesn't really want to be involved in this. She just wanted a partner who could make sure that the goal and vision that she has set for the company, right, is handled. And she wants to know that she's got a partner who can handle it and get them where they want to go. Fortunately, now she was just awarded top CEO under the whatever the rating is, but top CEO under 30, that, that category and in her category. And I think she gets a lot of fulfillment in that, because we're just one component of that. We're certainly not the whole company, but I think that's what they want.
Yeah. And they don't have to worry about that. And I think you're definitely right. Sure. I see it. And because like you I've been in several different industries over the years, and there've been industries I've gotten into that I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like I'm not getting fulfillment from the, you know what I mean? And I'm gonna do something else. Like, but some people get caught up into that. And I think a lot of times they do step out, even inside of their business, like HVAC. It was a profitable business. I didn't enjoy it. I wanted out of it about a year into it, but it's a great business and stuff. It just wasn't my style, and I wasn't going to get there. And I can see, and it goes to show that all our listeners, if you're in the entrepreneurial space, like Darrell's talking about, hire the person like Darrell to get the job done, get those prospects up and going for you, so you don't have to worry about that portion of your business. Right. Go and put in the HVACs, go and sell the HVACs or whatever else you're selling, and let somebody build a pipeline for you. So you just answer the phone and then go to work. It ain't like it used to be. I remember we got the Pink Plumber in Atlanta, and it's female-owned business, great business, fantastic business. We love the owner. And she said one time, what happened to the good old days when you just borrowed all the money you could and bought the back pages of the yellow pages and then prayed you could fill the orders? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look at things have changed a lot. Whole new world nowadays. Right. So you need a professional.
It's interesting too. It's interesting too, because I love 2 points that you made about the ownership of the business, right? So we see a lot of business owners who are great technicians. Michael Gerber put it best in his book, The E-Myth. And that is that a lot of entrepreneurial firms were started because the technician had an entrepreneurial seizure working for someone else, meaning they were the best technician in the place, whether that's a doctor, lawyer, CPA, car mechanic, whatever the case. And they got pissed off because Tom, the boss, was out playing golf and traveling to Florida and traveling, all over the world. And, they had a problem. And then all of a sudden, Mike or Susie decided, well, this business would fall apart if I left, so I'm gonna go hang my own hat. And the good part about it is they're great at the technical craft of the thing. But they forgot that it was Tom. It was Tom it was Tom who ran the business, who handled the finances, who handled the sales, who made it rain. Right. Yes. And so that's where the interesting part is. And there's also these other components that we find ourselves in. We're a digital marketing agency in this example, but we also find ourselves deep into the sales process, which is where a lot of people don't recognize. It's easy to bring a company in like us, and we can get the ad set up and we can do all the funnel stuff, if you will, whatever that is. But you know what's interesting? And this even goes from Fortune 1000 companies all the way down to small businesses. Here's one of the biggest problems that has yet to be solved with small businesses that are succeeding or starting to do a lot more volume using the internet or social media. And that is the time it takes for the average salesperson to get back to a new lead is ridiculously high, even in Fortune 500 companies. 70% of corporate America salespeople don't even get back to leads within 24 hours. That's amazing when you think we're paying. Right. It's atrocious. Yes. Now, the best conversion rate is at 10 minutes, but that's maybe a little obnoxious. And so that's when we talk about technology, we talk about automation. But a lot of people will hire a great marketing firm or a great marketing individual, consultant or strategist, and they'll blame the strategist, but they won't look at the underlying operational systems, because
Next step.
Right.
Yeah.
you can't just bring 200 leads to the door and expect that, well, I'm going to convert 6 of them. Well, what are you going to, so there's all sorts of dynamics, but that's why it's a holistic process.
It is.
And that's
It is.
that's what gives you scale.
Yep.
Well,
Agreed.
I wish we had hours to talk, really and truly.
Yeah.
But you've been a fantastic guest. Tell our guests how our listeners how they can reach you, if our prospects want to reach out to you.
Yeah, sure. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys. I love your expertise, and I've listened to your show. If people have enjoyed anything I've had to say, I'd love for you to just pop by the MindShift Podcast, wherever you're listening to this show. You can find us everywhere on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeart, all the places. So that's the MindShift Podcast. And if you happen to want to venture out and hang out with me somewhere online, I'm most active on social media, on Instagram at Mr. Darrell Evans, and we can connect there.
That's awesome.
I love it. Darrell, you've been a pleasure to talk with today. Thank you so much for bringing all of your knowledge here to us.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate every opportunity to share. And thank you for opening your platform for me.
You bet. You bet. Okay, guys. So if you learned something today that helps you or inspires you, we encourage you to like it, love it, share it, and ding, subscribe, so you can be the first one to learn about the next episode of Be Bold Branding.
Yeah, guys, it's all about prosperity. When we talk about prosperity here, we're not just talking about money. We're talking about the true 360 of an abundant life that we wish for every one of y'all. We know here that prosperity favors the bold. So we say be bold, especially with your brand, and especially in 2022. Thank you, Mr. Darrell.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right, we'll see you next time on Be Bold Branding.
Brought to you by BrandFace, the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe.